So here's my top 10 worst neighborhoods in New York City. Number 10, Vinegar Hill. Vinegar Hill stretches from the East River waterfront to Front Street and from the Brooklyn Navy Yard to Bridge Street, roughly comprising of a 6-block area. Vinegar Hill was originally an Irish neighborhood after the Civil War and for decades later. The founder of the area named it after a 1798 battle between the Irish and the British back in the old country. Most of the buildings in Vinegar Hill were originally warehouses. Since the early 2000s, it has been turned around and becoming like this whole nice area, loft buildings and office spaces. Like most of the neighborhoods in New York City, they're getting better. And have been for some time. Now that's the good news. What makes this place suck, you ask? Housing projects to the south, Naval Shipyard to the west, and a place called Dumbo to the east. Now, Dumbo's actually another one turned into a nice neighborhood, but it just sounds stupid. Which makes this place fall on this list is really home prices. One section is housing projects, and the other section is being revitalized. So you have this whole crime mixed in with a revitalization thing, and it's a struggle going both ways. In 2016, Vinegar Hill had 131 assaults, 34 armed robberies, 11 shootings. Here's some fun facts. You have an 8% better chance of getting murdered in Vinegar Hill than the national average. The median home value is just under $950,000. Yeah, for the crime versus the home value, there's a disconnect there that's really strange. Number 9, the Meatpacking District. The Meatpacking District is a neighborhood in the New York City borough of Manhattan that runs roughly from West 14th Street south to Gansevoort and from the Hudson River east to Hudson Street. You might think this one's a mistake, and I kind of understand that. If you know the city, you're probably sitting there going, what is this? This is one of the best neighborhoods in New York City. Now, give a little history. The Meatpacking District obviously was an industrial area before. The Meatpacking District was a nightmare until the 1990s when it started a transformation. Even in HBO's series Sex and the City, it was in a good portion of the episodes where they went to boutiques, art show openings, things like that. A lot of champagne, a lot of well-dressed rich people in that series, in the Meatpacking District. And that's, it's a TV show and I get it, but it's kind of the type of thing that goes on there. We're talking about tree-lined streets, beautiful homes that cost a fortune. Wealthy residents make them very attractive to thieves. Car thefts have soared from 18% in the early 2000s to about 45%. Burglary is high, and rape has been a serious concern lately. Now, I'm sure to the criminal element in the city, the Meatpacking District is viewed as a target-rich environment. It's just too much money going on there. And it's too close to some really bad neighborhoods. Now here's some fun facts. The cost of living in the Meatpacking District, and in the West Village in general, is about 223% higher than the national average. The cost of living in the West Village and Meatpacking District is 98% higher than the national average. Gotta have some coin to live there nowadays. Number 8, Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen was notorious for violent gang activity back in the day, and Chelsea was a well-known drug haven. Today, both of these places have had a big drop in crime and drug use, thanks to a blind lawyer, a heavy-drinking private investigator, a kung-fu rich kid with a truckload of daddy's money, and a big dude named Luke that they say is bulletproof. Wait, forget that. Those are the backstories to Marvel's Defenders series on Netflix. Forgot that. Well, someone cleaned the place up. It isn't like it used to be, but it's still bad enough to make this list. Crime isn't as much an issue as cost and crowds. This place is packed and expensive. That doesn't mean they're crime-free. Last week, a 27-year-old man was reportedly bar hopping with a friend after a Rangers game and ended up at a karaoke place on Orchard Street. The two were reportedly split up, and the victim was found at Stanton and Allen completely inebriated and stabbed in the left buttocks. All he remembers is someone yelling, "Don't ever sing Man-Eater by Hall & Oates in my bar again, punk," and the police found him in a park later on. Here's the fun facts. The cost of living in Hell's Kitchen in Chelsea is 35 and 39% higher than the average New York cost of living. The cost of living in Hell's Kitchen is 35% higher than the New York average. The unemployment rate in Chelsea is 10% higher than the national average. Number 7, Midtown. Only 75,000 people live in Midtown, But the sheer number of tourists, office, and support workers make the center of Manhattan one of the most trafficked areas in the city. So despite its great location, Midtown is ranked dead last in overall safety in all the neighborhoods of New York City. They just have too many potential victims in Midtown on a daily basis. Anytime you fill a place with tourists, you're filling it with opportunists. And that's my nice, politically correct way of saying thieves and scumbags. Opportunists. You like that? I'm learning. I'm growing as a mature adult. Here's the fun facts about Midtown. The cost of housing in Midtown is 187% higher than the national average. The average school test score in Midtown is 11% lower than the national average, and the number of total year-over-year crime in New York City has decreased by 3%, theft being the only category that has actually seen a steady increase. Number 6. Harlem. This is the portion of the list where we run out of places that suck because of cost and start getting to the more dangerous parts of New York. Harlem is a large neighborhood in the northern section of the New York City borough of Manhattan. Since the 1920s, Harlem has been known as a major African-American residential, cultural, and business center. It was originally a Dutch village, formally organized right around 1658. It took its name from the city of Harlem in the Netherlands. It's spelled with 2 A's instead of 1. Harlem is another section of New York that was really bad 20 years ago to about 70 years ago. That whole section in there, it was just bad. Now it's gotten better. Not a ton better, but it has gotten better. One of the only things that isn't an F or a D- is housing. It's one of the only places you can find cheap housing in Manhattan. It's kind of rare. There's a couple other places that are worse, but this is one of the first ones. Here's some fun facts. The average school test score in Harlem is 19% lower than the national average. The unemployment rate in Harlem is 40% higher than the national average. Not a lot of jobs, not a lot of schooling go on there. Number 5. Mott Haven. Mott Haven is primarily a residential neighborhood in the southwestern section of the Bronx borough in New York City. Mott Haven marks the first time I have ever come across a location that was graded F on everything but weather. I mean, holy shit. You have to try to be bad. No way that happens by mistake. Area Vibe considers it barely livable. What's after barely livable? Is that like uninhabitable? Like Mars or the moon? Crazy. The one positive aspect of Mott Haven is the architecture. If you're feeling adventurous, and I mean extremely adventurous, take a drive and see Bernstein Block, which is very impressive, the 40th Precinct Police Station, which is one of the most heavily used buildings in the city, and the Mott Haven Post Office. And that's really the only positives I could say. I'm sure if I was a resident, or you're a resident listening to this, you're going to bring up about 50 things positive about Mott Haven. Yeah, they're not really that positive. So stop typing. Here's some fun facts about Mott Haven. The unemployment rate is 45% higher than the national average. The overall crime rate in Mott Haven is 25% higher than the national average. Don't go there. Number 4. Tremont. Tremont is a residential neighborhood in the Bronx borough of New York City. This is another neighborhood that got straight Fs, and I get the feeling if they had anything lower than F, they could have used it. Now, how Tremont got its name is kind of interesting. Rather than having come from some colonial settlement, like most of New York City, the name Tremont was invented by a postmaster in the 1800s, derived from the 3 neighborhoods, Mount Eden, Mount Hope, and Fairmount, in the west central Bronx. Tre means 3, in case you don't know. This is my advice to anyone visiting New York City. If you see a sign that says, "Welcome to Tremont," treat it like you're in Lord of the Rings and you just saw Gandalf yell, "You shall not pass." You shall not pass! Here's some fun facts about Tremont. The average school test score in Tremont is 14% lower than the national average. The unemployment rate in Tremont is 81% higher than the national average. Don't go job hunting in Tremont. Number 3. Bedford-Stuyvesant. Things have gotten better for Bedford-Stuyvesant since Jay-Z rode the Bed-Stuy street cred to stardom. It's no longer the gold standard for urban violence. But that doesn't mean things aren't generally grim for the slowly gentrifying Brooklyn neighborhood. After years of improvement, they had a 6% jump in overall crime in 2017. And it's reason for concern. Now that includes robbery and murder, giving Bedford-Stuy the 67th overall ranking in violent crime. That's 67 out of 69 neighborhoods in New York City. Here's some fun facts about Bed-Stuy. The cost of housing in Bedford-Stuyvesant is 106% higher than the national average. The per income capita in Bed-Stuy is 23% lower than the national average. Now, when you've got that low of an income and you've got that high of a housing cost, there's a serious problem. That usually means a lot of people are being chased out of the neighborhood, but the violence is still increasing somewhat. Number 2. Brownsville. Brownsville is a residential neighborhood located in eastern Brooklyn in New York City. The Brownsville motto may be never ran, never will, but that's not the best advice considering the neighborhood is officially the murder capital of New York City. Brownsville was the scene of the most murders and shooting per capita in the city, and that's alarming. Crime has dropped in recent years, including robbery and murder, but not enough to keep Brownsville from ranking as one of the least safe neighborhoods in New York City overall. 68 out of 69. This one is all F's, but weather and housing. And that's the great thing about being dubbed the murder capital. Cheap housing. Here's some fun facts. The unemployment rate in Brownsville is 37% higher than the national average. The cost of living in Brownsville is 36% higher than the national average. Here's another great one. Only 70% of the people in Brownsville have completed 8th grade. And number 1, Hunts Point. Hunts Point is a neighborhood located on a peninsula in the South Bronx borough of New York City. It's an industrial area and the location of one of the largest food distribution facilities in the world. Efforts have been made in the last few years to clean up this industrial area. Hunts Point has a pretty horrible reputation for prostitution and crime in general. Initiatives have helped cut down on murders, carjacking, burglary, and reported rapes. This place was even the focus of HBO's series Hookers on the Point. And it was a documentary series, so it wasn't like, Pretty Woman type prostitution. It was gritty and it was horrible. If you get a chance, watch it. Despite these efforts, Hunts Point is still the bottom of the barrel for New York City neighborhoods. There were 135 violent crimes per 100,000 residents in 2017. In 2017, there was an increase of rape, up 67%, misdemeanor sex crimes, up 26%, and robberies, up 36%. Here's some fun facts. In Hunts Point, you have a 1 in 30 chance of becoming the victim of a violent crime. Not all crimes, just a violent crime. The income per capita in Hunts Point is 58% lower than the national average. The unemployment rate in Hunts Point is 52% higher than the national average. Hunts Point is an ugly, ugly place. If you ever look at pictures of it, it looks like New York City in the 1970s. It's just bad. Alright everyone, that's my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now, this is a tough one. My experience with people from New York, they always seem to think their neighborhood is the absolute worst, so I know I'm going to get a lot of comments. This was gone off of stats, so I'm sorry if one neighborhood didn't make it. It might be better in one area. You know the drill. But I hope you did enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe. I left a link for my Patreon account as always. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.